One of our presentations from last month, because we seem to be doing two a month right now, the one on September 15th was playtime. A wonderful invitation to play is laughter. A very warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for sharing your afternoon with us. The Nourishment Projects is about joyous curiosity and being part of something much larger than ourselves. Here are some of the references that inform this presentation. As you can tell, the reference looks very sparse, but it's actually not, because the number of publications by Sophie Scott is tremendous. So there was a lot of things involved in her publications, and it really guided the way I look at laughter now. So children laugh. They start laughing, infants start laughing around 4 months. They smile first. And then along with them, as they grow older, children laugh, as do adults. And this woman looks like she'll turn beetroot red in a few minutes, similar to the vegetables that she's harvesting. No one is immune to laughter, regardless of status. Royalty laughs, and laughter is prevalent across all cultures and age. So this poet is a lifelong champion of outsiders. And this English poet in general writes poignantly and often with humor. His depiction of falling in love is telling. And he had said, "I fell in love so much that I felt no sensation at all, beyond being drained of all power of limbs." Love does that, doesn't it? Just leaves you helpless, completely renders you helpless. So does laughter. So take, for example, the now well-known episode from BBC, which is the British Broadcasting Corporation, the national broadcaster of the United Kingdom. They did not, and certainly they do not like their broadcasters showing any emotions whatsoever. They simply want you to deliver the news. That's their diktat. So when there were two British cricket commentators from BBC, Brian Johnston and Jonathan Agnew, these broadcasters were aware of that. Don't show emotion. However, in 1991, once when they were covering a cricket match at the Lord's Test Cricket, which is in London, it's a very famous cricket ground, these commentators got the giggles while live on air. An absolutely infectious 2 minutes of laughter. So remember, the BBC has strict rules about not laughing, not expressing any emotions while on stage. To let your voice break whatsoever, meaning they don't want you to start losing control. And these two certainly did. They were practically squealing for breath. I mean, they went into fits of laughter. Two adult men. No stiff upper lip going on here whatsoever. Laughter is unbelievably powerful in that it can leave you powerless. It renders someone unable to speak. Imagine the power of that. And we've all felt it, haven't we? I know we have. And you can't really describe it. You can only experience it. That sensation when laughter has its claws in you, overwhelms your system. You simply cannot stop, especially if you have friends or people laughing along with you, because laughter, like yawning, is contagious. You almost want to beg, please stop, so that I may stop laughing as well. And the interesting thing about laughter is it's contagious only and mostly if you're with people that you know or you like. Because if you see a group of people that you don't know laughing, strangers laughing, oftentimes, like if you see children on a train laughing uproariously and you're being irritated, it's like, stop laughing. But if you were part of the group, you'd laugh along. And so this unmoderated joy in another's company does not happen with strangers. Unlike a yawn, which is contagious across the board, laughter is contagious if you know the people. And you don't also happen to be in the same place, in the same room, to be infected with laughter. Case in point, the weekend NPR radio show Car Talk. It made the Tappet brothers, Tom and Ray, household names. They were known as Click and Clack over the weekends. And their love of humor, cars, and family made them two of the most popular hosts in public radio history. What one mainly remembers is their chortles, their boisterous laughter, and their audience laughing along across the airways, across the United States, far removed from where they were broadcasting, which was Boston. These wisecracking brothers who fielded calls from listeners with seemingly intractable vehicular puzzles offered advice about maintenance, all the while trading self-deprecating jabs at each other. They invited their listeners to replicate the weird sounds their cars made, or based on a description of the problem, these guys made the weird noises themselves. It was really funny. And what they did was they made the anxious callers laugh and gave them room and time to talk about how their troubled car fit into their lives. When the show ended, in a joint statement, Ray, one of the brothers, and I'm going to quote what he said: "We've managed to avoid getting thrown off NPR for 25 years, given out tens of thousands of wrong answers, generated lawsuit threats from innumerable car companies, and had a hell of a lot of fun talking to you guys." Close quotes. It's really about a camaraderie, isn't it? Laughter does that, makes you bond. If you laugh with somebody, you're bonding. It's a social communication. So the emotional expression that is laughter is really hard to pin down. And the belief that laughter is a singular human trait, that laughter makes us human, that is false. Other social creatures have laughter too. And the father of evolution, Charles Darwin, studied laughter. Like our ancestors, our evolutionary ones, so we're going way back, we are social creatures who laugh. We're not the only ones. There's ample evidence of chimps and apes playing and laughing at the process. And as far as evolutionary biology goes, laughter is good for us. A good belly laugh leads to the release of endorphins from the brain. So endorphins, these are the pleasure-seeking, pleasure-inducing neurotransmitters, activate receptors on the surface of the endothelium, which is the layer of cells lining blood vessels. So this leads to the release of nitric oxide, which widens blood vessels. So it's increasing blood flow, lessening inflammation, inhibiting platelet clumping. So it reduces the formation of cholesterol plaque. So biologically, laughter is good for you because it releases endorphins. So this cascade of heart healthy biological events is going on. However, the bulk of the research that was done, it was not evidence-based. So were you to ask by any means a peer-reviewed scientific journal whether laughter cures or prevents diseases, you can see from the look, they'd be smirking and just simply say, no, there's no evidence for it. But as far as I'm concerned, so what? It feels therapeutic. Don't you feel better if you're laughing? It is medicinal to me. Perhaps science will catch up to what naturally feels like healing. Because, we do have evidence to all these skeptics. It's the same science that once believed there was a king bee. The real queen bee just laughed her way to glory. Science isn't always right, but they do have humility and they adapt and they change. There are many descriptions of laughter to take track of. Cackling, chortling, chuckling, giggling, grinning, smirking, sneering. This one looks like sniggering. One can just keep on going. Similarly, the sources of laughter, that which produces humor, they're just as diverse. Comedy, jest, jocularity, whimsy, wit, wisecracks, all of them produce laughter, humor. And it's really surprising how much material is available on laughter, all the way from Socrates to Kant. Massive, there's huge philosophies on laughter. But in general, humor may be put into 4 broad categories. First one, affiliative humor, telling jokes to laugh with others. It's that aspect of laughing together, bonding. It's a sort of communication, isn't it? The second one, not that I'm going to talk about now, is the self-enhancing humor. This is the laughter as medicine concept. It is effectively laughter as a coping mechanism, to be amused at life's hardships so that you can cheer oneself. Another one, self-defeating humor, making fun of oneself for the enjoyment of others. And this is often cultural. The British do it a lot. It's self-deprecation. It works really well. And finally, aggressive humor, enhance oneself at the expense of others. It's caustic, biting humor, and it's unfortunately prevalent nowadays. I dislike teasing. I've always hated it. So what one gleans is that laughter is value-based. cultures that value self-sacrifice, cohesion, harmony within groups. Often these are cultures in the East, but not definitely limited to it. They prefer the first two humor, the affiliative humor, the self-defeating humor. Individualistic cultures that promote competition, they accept aggressive humor. And in these cases, it's the novelty of thinking that's really valued. And so one begins to understand that comedy does not travel well. It is culturally based. What may be very funny to India may not be funny to somebody in South America. So if you look at it, Americans will very easily recognize the Three Stooges shows on the left. They would also recognize the Marx Brothers. In the middle, the British and most of Britain's colonies, anyone from there will recognize P.G. Woodhouse's character Jeeves Brewster. And India, where I'm from, just as an example, Santa Banta is easily recognized humor. They're the ones on the right. And all these examples are about silly man behavior. Not that every behavior of man is silly, but I just wanted to have an equivalence going across the board, that this is common throughout the world. So an example of Santa Banta humor is, so I'm going to read a joke to you. A co-worker told Santa that his wife was being unfaithful every day at 1:30 in the afternoon with Santa's best friend. So worried and hurt, Santa ran home at 1:30 to see if this was true. He came back to the office contented and reserved, and he was very relieved. And he sternly said to his co-worker when they inquired what happened, Santa said, "Look, don't start such terrible humors. This is not funny, and I don't like these rumors at all, because that guy isn't my friend. I don't even know him." That is the kind of humor that is Santa Banta. And it's everybody in India knows Santa Banta jokes. So the one question that comes to mind is, what is the funniest joke in the world? Someone actually tried to get an answer to this. So in 2002, the psychologist Richard Wiseman launched a website and called it the Laugh Lab, where anyone around the world could submit a joke and rate each other's jokes. He got over 41,000 entries and 1.5 million jokes and votes. Sorry, votes, not jokes. And some of the entries were obviously very funny. I'm going to read one. There was one with Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, in that the two went camping. And so Holmes and Watson pitched their tent under the stars and went to sleep. Sometimes in the middle of the night, Holmes woke Watson and said, "Watson, look up at the stars and tell me what you see." So Watson replied, "I see millions and millions of stars." So Holmes inquires, "And what do you deduce from that?" So Watson dutifully replies, "Well, if there are millions of stars, and even if a few of these have planets, it's quite likely that there are some planets like Earth out there. And if there are a few planets like Earth out there, there might also be life." To which Holmes says, "Watson, you idiot. It means that someone stole our tent." That's what it means. So the joke that was deemed funniest in the Laugh Lab was this one. The joke says, two hunters are out in the woods when one of them collapses. He doesn't seem to be breathing and his eyes are glazed. The other guy whips out his cell phone and calls the emergency services. He gasps, "My friend is dead. What can I do?" The operator says, "Calm down. I can help. First, let's make sure he's dead." There is a silence, and then a shot is heard. Back on the phone, the guy says, "Okay, now what do I do?" How about that? That was deemed the funniest joke in the world. So the person who submitted it was a psychiatrist originally from India, Gurpal Gosal. And he said that he liked the joke as it makes people feel better because it reminds them that there's always someone out there who is doing something more stupid than themselves. I'm not quite sure I feel good about that, but it made me laugh. So laughter continues to be studied and researched, though admittedly, many scientists and academics scoff at its silliness. They shouldn't. Laughter is serious business, even beyond the heart-healthy benefits mentioned earlier. For example, did you know that rats can laugh? And in fact, they do. Or more precisely, they vocalize something like laughter when they are tickled. Their high pitches cannot be heard by the human ear, so machines are needed to hear it. But they do vocalize what we call laughter. And rats do more than just make the sound of laughter. So yeah, first and foremost, what I find very funny is there are scientists in the world who go around tickling rats. That's something that's part of their research. Then on top of it, rats like to be tickled because they keep running to the same place when they see their beloved tickler approaching. And so when they see this human tickler approaching, they also make the sound already as well. So that sound, again, laughter is an invitation to play. So the rat is saying, come play with me. So the sound of laughter is not a trivial thing. Part of the experiment, which I found very cruel, the scientists removed the voice box of some of the rats so that even when they were being tickled and they're enjoying the tickling, there was no sound of the rat laughter. So that vocalization wasn't produced. What happened next was interesting. Without that sound, the vocalless rats often got bitten by other rats when they interacted, when these rats played together. However, rats play together. I don't know how they play, but however they play, when they couldn't vocalize, the rat that couldn't make a sound got bitten. Isn't that interesting? But it makes sense if you give it a second of thought, because play without the sound of laughter can resemble aggression, especially in humans. So until 2011, there really was a pillow fighting league based out of Toronto, an official league of pillow fighters. The league even had groups of 2 or 3 women fighting with pillows. And very cleverly, they called their team Damage à Trois. They had a good sense of humor. That said, it's important that they call it damage because damage did happen even in pillow fights. Concussions, split lips, bruised eyes. The idea of it makes you wince, doesn't it? So now to this, simply add laughter, the sound of laughter. Instantly, it becomes play. Revelry, the sound of laughter, squeals of delight rippling through the crowds. It's the sound that makes all the difference. So for that connection of the sound, the importance of the sound, please meet Charles Douglas and his 1950s invention, the laugh box. In the 1950s, TV sitcoms were taking off in America, but the live audience format was risky business for TV producers. That is because the audience members sometimes laughed too long or not long enough, and someone would sometimes make a noise mid-scene. Restless folks would leave the film hours before it was over. It was very disturbing to the producers. So Mr. Douglas's invention revolutionized the TV sitcom business, and it made him a star. Why is that? Because he recorded real people's laughter and looped the sounds, feeding them into a special machine. At the press of a button, the machine delivered different kinds of laughter. So when an episode of, say, for example, the Beverly Hillbillies was finished recording, the TV studio would call him to add in the canned laughter. And it is most likely the laugh box that allowed shooting comedies outside in places like the sleepy streets of Mayberry. This is very different from if it had been shot within a 3-camera live audience studio setting, like the I Love Lucy used to be shot. It allowed things like, Barney Fife walking around a supposed town, because without a live audience where you can later add laugh tracks, so you can add sounds of real people, the camera can go to different places. That is what allows you to walk through Mayberry. It allows you to follow the castaways around a Gilligan's Island. It allows you to explore the monster's haunted mansion. So the camera followed everywhere and the laugh track was put in. The reality is most actors, most writers, most directors did not like to have laughs added to the show. They were often forced to it by the producers and the network people of these shows, who felt that if there wasn't a laugh, the audience wouldn't know when to laugh, that they wouldn't enjoy it as much. Don't you find that idea offensive? That I'd be too stupid to laugh at when it was funny? Effectively, you're insulting the writer of the jokes. In the 1970s, TV creators began to push back against the laugh track convention. And that is why when the sitcom Cheers started, someone said Cheers has been recorded before a live studio audience. And that's their way of saying, no, this is not a Charles Douglas laugh track. This is not fake laughing, that I trust you, that you will laugh along in our jokes. We believe in what we're offering. So the American sitcom Friends used live audiences during rehearsals, and depending on the laughter feedback during rehearsals, they tweaked the script before final performance. So it was like a hybrid laughter. The Big Bang Theory, one of the most successful CBS sitcom shows, used laugh tracks throughout. And it made me wonder why the producers did that. Because they likely needed an educated audience to get some of the science-based jokes. So I have no idea why they used laugh tracks. Observe also the subtle effects of not having a laugh track. One of the secrets to the brisk pace of the Simpsons sitcom was that the show didn't have a studio audience. It's hard to overstate how much sitcom time and propulsion of the story has been lost over the decades due to laugh track, because as the sound of canned laughter goes on, it is interfering with the delivery and the pacing of humor, because you're stopping to let this laughter play out. So nowadays, a very popular Apple TV show is Ted Lasso. It has no soundtrack. Whereas Seinfeld, a very popular TV show, used as laugh track. And it's interesting to read the script and juxtapose the sound of included laughter. Now, I'll give you an example. There's a very famous double dipping episode within Seinfeld with the character of George Costanza, who saw no problem in dipping a chip, taking a bite, and dipping again to ensure that each bite contained his preferred chip to dip ratio. It's double dipping. So in that scene, George's girlfriend's brother accosts him, and the script reads, you dipped the chip, you took a bite, and then you dipped again. It's like putting your whole mouth into the dip. If you read that, someone's accusing, what's so funny about that? But you see, it becomes funny depending on the delivery when it's aided by a laugh track, because the laugh track indicated in the gaps between the dialogue. The producers manipulate laughter in millions of viewers. You hear the laughter and you start smiling. Sound of laughter is incredibly influential. And these laugh tracks are also culturally dependent. When the US sitcom MASH played in the UK, it was played without a laugh track. When the original UK version of the Office sitcom, because it was originally from the UK, when it was played in the US, a laugh track was added. What does that say about people's impression about us Americans? It's like, don't you think we are intelligent enough to get the laughter? So the US version of The Office, headed by the actor Steve Carell, I'm going to point to him, that guy there, did not have a laugh track added. Both shows were very successful on either side of the Atlantic. Again, comedy does not travel, because comedy is also language dependent. And the dialogues were different, even though they were speaking the same language, English, because grammar and manner of speaking matters. So take, for example, just the words who versus whom. One needs to know the intricacies of grammar to get this witty joke. Effectively, it's not the common fallacy, that book, Who's Who? Because technically it should say whomsoever's whomsoever. But I would never say this joke in public. They'd be like, you are so pedantic, Shoma, get out of my face. A much less esoteric, funny use of a term is the English word scheme. In England, the word scheme simply means a plan, whereas in the US, that word scheme is fraught with things like duplicity and cunning. So jokes with the word scheme will be interpreted very differently in the two countries, even though it's the same language. Another example, the word pants. In England, it sometimes refers to underpants, underwear. So you can guess how liar, liar, pants on fire is interpreted there. It was used deliciously on the UK Prime Minister, John Major, who had been caught having an affair. So this stodgy, conservative, white-haired, gray-suited man having an affair, a 4-year affair with a married woman, was a revelation to the public. But what really killed his career even more was the ridiculous story that he tucked his shirt into his pants. Now remember, this means in the UK, tucking his shirt into his pants, they're implying he tucked his shirt into his underpants. The UK press was merciless about it. John Major had followed the conservative Margaret Thatcher. The ridicule of tucking shirt into underpants, among other things, helped bring the more liberal Tony Blair into power. I mean, it's just ridiculous to hear. John Major never recovered. That thread of laughter unspooled his authority. Laughter truly is power. And that connection between laughter and power has been searingly obvious in the 2018 during the US Supreme Court nomination hearings for Brett Kavanaugh. A Yale graduate and family man, he was portrayed as such in his introduction to the American public, and his good nature evidenced through his smiling countenance, his warm laugh. Yet, in the Senate confirmation hearings, it was revealed that years ago, as a teenager, he had leapt on top of a girl, Christine Blasey Ford, shown on the right with the glasses, shown here obviously as an adult. He had tried to disrobe her while his friend watched. I'll read part of her testimony. As Senator Patrick Leahy asked Dr. Ford, and quotes, "What is the strongest memory you have of the incident?" And Dr. Ford answered, "The laughter, the uproarious laughter between the two, of their having fun at my expense." Senator Leahy asks, "You never forgot them laughing at you?" Ford responded, "They were laughing with each other." Senator Leahy, "You were the object of their laughter." Ford, "I was underneath one of them while the two laughed. Two friends having a really good time with one another." You know, those hearings were unbearable to listen because one never forgets the humiliation. It's so recognizable. Laughter among friends meant for bonding, but in that particular case, social bonding simultaneously while bullying, a power move at the same time, an absolute belittling, derision treated as fun, such behavior dismissed as boys will be boys, locker room banter. But it's anything but. Two men joking around, Billy Bush and Donald Trump. Billy Bush casually giggling along with Trump's jokes, echoing the tycoon's assertion that he can do whatever he wants to beautiful women. And when they get off this bus that he was being interviewed in, Billy Bush prompts the actress Ariane Zucker to hug Trump and then hug him. Quote, Billy says, "A little hug for the Bushy," close quotes. Years later, when this came out around 2018, in a statement released shortly after the video was published, Billy Bush, who was I won't call him a journalist, I don't know what he is, he said that he was embarrassed and humiliated. He was ashamed. And he admitted, while it's no excuse, it happened 11 years ago. I was younger, less mature, and acted foolishly in playing along. Okay, at the time when this happened, Billy Bush was 33 years old. He was a grown adult, yet most unmanly. We're going to leave the political angle of the story and focus on the power play of laughter, hierarchical laughter, laughing along with those in power. So take the movie, The Wolf of Wall Street. So the actor Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Jordan Belfort, he goes from a boiler room huckster to becoming a Wall Street tycoon in the movie. So boiler rooms are the cheap offices where brokers would sit in close proximity, serially calling sucker lists of potential share buyers, selling worthless stocks from a pre-prepared script. So from cheap suits, as he becomes wealthy, DiCaprio's character transitions into bespoke clothing, giving his drug-fueled frat house pep talks, rousing in huckster brokers to a fever pitch of money lust. He's doing all of this, influencing them. And they laugh along to anything he does and everything he says. Now, Leonardo DiCaprio had gone on record to say he was shocked that the audience laughed at moments that were actually cringe-inducing, not meant for humor. So I ask, what does it mean about us when we laugh along with power? There are very few moments of truth-telling, the necessary truth-telling of, look, the emperor has no clothes. At its most damaging, this enables the power of laughter. It gives the power of laughter capacity to bully. Laughter is a social bond. It is an inclusion, to be part of a group, to laugh. An inclusion implies an exclusion, being left out. When deliberate, the cruelty of excluding someone menacingly, meanly, is horrifying. The shame, the derision, the hollowing of self, the sense of sheer agony, the sheer agony of being laughed at, you don't forget those things. It's that mockery. Laughter is a power code. Groups of children bonding while laughing at another, while the subject of their mockery experiences isolation. That warm, bonding group laughter, as evidenced in the shot from the movie in the back, is simultaneously unbearable to the one being mocked. It's really sickening. Social networks of laughter. Laughter has become tribal social communication on network television the world over. This is not a US phenomena. One group mocking the other, parodying the other, laugh at the other and dismiss them outright. You simply laugh the other, whoever it is, off the stage. It's an absolute form of contempt to make the other less than human. And oddly, that's the thing about laughter. The involuntary, reflexive laughter that comes unbidden. In polite company, we modulate our reactions, don't we? We laugh politely, we laugh at the right moments. But the real gushing forth of laughter, it is extremely animal-like. It links us, doesn't it? Laughter actually has none of the fancy detailed movements of lips, of jaws, of teeth and tongue that language requires. I have to be adept at what I'm saying in any language. But the vocalization of laughter in both creatures is effectively move air out of the airbox. I guess even in rats. When we laugh, all our polish, all our culture, all our sophistication goes out the window with that extraordinary power of laughter. Isn't that something? So look closely at that other power, religion, be it Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, or even Christianity. These are all power plays. Religions are massive plays of power. And none have humor in it. I Googled very hard. I looked to find scriptures that are funny. I'm asking you, if you do, put it in the chat box. Do you know of a funny scripture in any religion? Hinduism doesn't have it. All these saviors told stories. None were funny. Laughter is social bonding. Didn't they want to sit there and bond with their adherences? Why doesn't religion have humor? Why doesn't it have laughter? Perhaps because religion knows laughter is more powerful. That's how I saw it, especially in the movie, The Master. That movie is quite a baptism. It's an acquired taste of a film, but it's hard to forget. So it's based in the 1950s after World War II. It is the character Freddie Quell, played by Joaquin Phoenix, and his inculcation into a pseudo-religious cult led by a leader, Lancaster Dodd, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman. And a Bob Dylan song in the movie sums up the premise rather well, the title, The Master. The lyrics are, and I quote, "You may be an ambassador to England or France. You may like to gamble, you may like to dance. You may be the heavyweight champion of the world. You may be a socialite with a long string of pearls, but you're going to have to serve somebody." Close quotes. That question, whom do you serve? Who is your master? That is the heart of that movie. And at the end of the movie, Joaquin Phoenix rides off in freedom, laughing. That freedom in laughter. Laugh at that which tries to humiliate, tries to dominate, tries to control. Laugh it off. It loses all its power. Yes, it's used by the powerful to bully and rule, but laughter can be a very effective weapon of the weak. For example, very pertinent now, the lawyer Vladimir Zelensky, who is now also the president of Ukraine. He came into power, he became popular with a TV sitcom, a comedy, where he mocked Russian President Putin. Now, as an actor, Zelensky laughed at Putin. So it was akin to a humorous David and Goliath story, Ukraine and Russia. We are watching it unfold across our eyes now. Politics is not discussed in these nourishment projects, so let's focus on the cultural aspect of the power of laughter, juxtaposing it with that other power of life, love. So laughter in religion, laughter in love, they are very powerful things, religion, love, and laughter. You can sense what I think is one of the most powerful. And a wedding full of laughter is always wonderful. Augurs well for a marriage full of joy. Again, laughter is cultural, and something that bewilders me, since I grew up in a different culture, is this common Western belief among many of my friends that humor is sexy. Now, this has got to be an East-West divide, because in my background, being funny, it's nice. It's like having a skill, akin to a partner knowing how to cook. It's a very useful skill. But I can buy food if necessary. To me, kindness is sexy, not humor. If you're humorous, it's like akin to having a gesture. It's like, yeah, you come, amuse me, and then be gone. Now, I realize humor, laughing, allows you to bond with someone else. Fine, no problem. From the Eastern mind, I may laugh with your jokes, I can bond with you, but by no means does it imply I find you appealing, in the very least in the romantic sense. No way. That is a massive East-West divide. I really want to know, please explain to me the appeal of George Burns, funny man. Apparently, he was a philanderer. I'm baffled by who'd want him. How is he sexy? Look again, another funny man. Bill Crosby, sexy? He certainly believed so, and he used drugs to convince many other women of his sexiness. Not funny or sexy. Jerry Seinfeld. In fact, I find this one particularly irritating. Okay, Chris Rock, quite funny. Again, not sexy. Robin Williams, very funny. No dice in the sexy department. Maybe it's an Eastern thing. I think this is how my Easternness shows up. Moving on, Dave Chappelle, very, very funny, extremely intelligent humor. Yet still, I don't wax dreamily about him. And yet I can name 2 or 3 women who would be aglow with desire over funny men. George Carlin, I think he's marvelous. Still not sexy, but delightful. I'll weep with laughter over what he says. Even now, the younger crowd, take this one, Pete Davidson. He used to be with Saturday Night Live show. He just recently quit. He's very interesting as a human being, and he talks openly about his mental issues, and I admire that. I admire his courage. I admire courage in everyone. He's a comedian, and he has dated some of the most successful and beautiful women in the industry. Kate Beckinsale, the singer Ariana Grande, and most recently, the billionaire Kim Kardashian. All of them, the sexiness of humor. No, at least not from the Eastern points of view. And by the way, I find it very telling that none of these relationships laugh. All this, humor is so sexy. What a great barometer of relationships. Think twice. I have to say, to me, I find this character, Deadpool, hilarious. I don't know if you guys have watched it. Just fabulous. Wry sense of humor, downright sexy in that repose, in that witty context. It's like the creation of Adam. He's touching violence. Okay. I will admit to you, I find Deadpool super sexy because he looks like this, not because he's funny. His humor impresses because he evidences a very thinking man, the way that he is funny. But his sexiness lies entirely in his physical appeal because he looks like this. Another comedic actor, Chris Hemsworth. Yes, this funny man is sexy because he looks like this. If he and I were on a date, this is a very big, mighty if, it would be something to the akin like, yeah, I hear you're funny. That's nice. Stop talking. Because I have many more funny things in mind to do with him than talk and hear him tell me jokes. What a waste of time. Look, really, I know I sound vapid, but do take a closer look. Because who says Lucille Ball is sexy? If I ask you to name a sexy actress from her times, or even before, from the times of George Burns, and during the times of all those supposedly sexy male comedians, perhaps you'll name an actor or actress, Ava Gardner. Oh, it's not Ava Gardner. Yeah, Ava Gardner, Eva Marie Saint, Anita Ekberg, not because they're funny, it's because they look sexy. Anita Ekberg wafting through the Trevi Fountain, hearing a mewing cat, very sexy. You're not mentioning Aubrey Meadows. And in case you don't know who that is, that's a lady from The Honeymooners. No one is mentioning Vivian Vance. And that's the woman who played Ethel in I Love Lucy. And these are all very, very funny, recognizable actresses. Why aren't they considered sexy? Even now, female comedians, someone like Melissa McCarthy, she's hilarious. Her movie, The Spy, go rent it. It's so funny. I wept. Who's calling her sexy in the same vein as they call Steve Carell, the guy from The Office, who is now considered sexy fox? They both produce laughter. They're probably both the same age, but sexy one is the male comedian. Look more, the comedy Pitch Perfect, all women cast. These women are very, very funny. You know, Pitch Perfect 3, the movies do well. So if you look at one of the actresses in that Pitch Perfect comedy, Rebel Wilson, she's very funny. She's done introductions for BAFTA that make you weep. No one considered her funny till she's lost all the weight. And now all the conversations are about, oh, look, she's sexy. Similarly, Mindy Kaling. She was with the show The Office, and she's made movies with actors like Emma Thompson. I think this is called Late Night. And yet again, it is a weight loss that's the focus. Then she's sexy. Laughter is dismissed in actresses. Humor and gender is fascinatingly connected. Because really, can you imagine Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson, fretting over looking buffed? I doubt it. This is Ricky Gervais from The Office. This is his GQ cover shot. I don't see this comedian hitting the gym or even bothering about it with vigor, and I'll bet women fawn over him. So sexy. Oh, gag. Okay, there are very many funny women. On the right here is Megan Thee Stallion. She's a very successful singer. And there's palpable humor in her lyrics and her videos. And I'm going to give you a staunch warning. It's very raunchy, biting, and delicious. I love her stuff, but it may not be your cup of tea. So this perception of laughter, that laughter is sexy, is entirely gender-based. It's true because really, who considers Ellen sexy? And I'll tell you something very funny about Ellen. So years ago, when I lived in Dallas, a friend who was visiting me from, I think she was coming from, I forgot where she was. She was studying somewhere. She came to visit me. And she wanted to go see Ellen perform live. But she was afraid of going to the show herself because she thought the show would be full of lesbians and she didn't want to be seen as that. And so she assumed if I, a married woman, went with her, she'd feel safe. In her innocence, she didn't fathom that others would simply view she and I as an exotic interracial couple. It didn't dawn on her. So I enjoyed the show because I think Ellen is super funny. I was also pissed off, and I complained to my husband when I got home that how come none of those women hit on me? I was deeply insulted. Wouldn't I be exotic arm candy? My husband just rolled his eyes, and I tell myself, if I hadn't gone there with my friend, Some of those women would have considered me that that we weren't a couple, and they might have hit on me and I had to have a bunch of takers. It's coping mechanism, laughter. Humor helps. Laughter is the best medicine, even for my ego. But that's the point of this story. Laughter is a healing marker. When we can think to laugh at tragedy, even begin to consider laughing at tragedy, that is when the healing has begun. When is it okay to allow humor back in after unspeakable horror? So after 9/11, September 11, on September 15th, then the late night comedy host David Letterman came to speak to his national audience. Days later, on September 20th, Jon Stewart, another comedian, spoke from the heart, trying to make sense of things, of this unspeakable tragedy. And he said, and I quote, "The view from my apartment used to be the World Trade Center. Now it's gone. But you know what the view is now? The Statue of Liberty. The view from the south of Manhattan now is the Statue of Liberty. You can't beat that." Close quotes. See, laughter helps heal. Even a small gesture of smile helps to heal. Laughter truly is therapy, and it's therapy the world over. They have laughing clubs, laughter yoga, which is a series of breathing and relaxation exercises that stimulate merriment. You do laugh, you just outright laugh, ha, 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 fake laughter till it becomes true. It was invented in 1995 by Madan Kataria. He's a doctor in India. And he first experimented with this therapeutic benefits of laughter by accosting strangers in a park in Mumbai with jokes. Only in India will you not be dismissed when you do something like that. The doctor then asked subjects to fake laughter and discovered that even false laughs eventually become genuine, producing the infectious good feeling that he knew had positive physical and psychological benefits. There are laughing clubs in many places around the world, even online. But as we come to a close, what is it that I have learned while I researched laughter? One that I discovered is that it is no mere laughing matter. Laughter is very serious. It has very many side effects, and it's entirely powerful. It's more powerful than religion and many other things. And it is used as a tool by many, both the weak and the powerful. But the most surprising thing for me regards the sound of laughter, the actual sound itself. Now, we all know someone who has an irritating laughter. Fran Drescher shown here, just for example. She has that nasally laughter. It barks, it's very high-pitched. Typically, when we recollect someone who has a very irritating laughter, they make us cringe. Their laughter annoys us. The reality is that their laughter is just fine, is simply that you don't like the person. The laughter is just a sound. The fact that you find the person's laughter irritating is actually evident. It's evidencing that you don't like that person. Because the moment you like that person, or if you like someone, their laughter sounds just fine. It usually sounds just simply lovely. The moment I realized that laughter ceases to be irritating with that person, because it was me all along. My views colored my ability to bond with another. The joke was on me. I laughed heartily at my own ignorance. Live and learn. That was my most valuable learning while I researched for laughter. And so, as always, I wish you joy, and today, the warmth of laughter. Thank you for your time. I'm going to stop sharing now.